So Trump's brand new favorite former beauty queen, Lindsey Halligan, is doing what all of his favorite former beauty queens do.
As James Comey's attorneys are arguing that Lindsey Halligan was improperly appointed to her role, Trump's handpicked U.S. attorney in Virginia is attracting scrutiny for another reason. Lindsey Halligan reportedly spent some 33 hours on and off during a recent weekend texting with a reporter. Not in regards to Comey's case, but that of another one of the president's targets, New York Attorney General Letitia James. It was reporting on that case that kickstarted this back and forth that you're about to see. Let me explain. Anna Bauer is a senior editor for the nonprofit publication Lawfare. She recently posted about a New York Times story concerning the case that was being made against the New York Attorney General, and Halligan is the person, of course, who presented that case to the grand jury. Less than an hour after Bauer posted about it, Halligan messaged her directly on the encrypted app Signal that reporters often use. And according to Bauer, Lindsey Halligan wrote, quote, "Anna, Lindsey Halligan here. You're reporting things that are simply not true. Thought you should have a heads up." What followed that initial text was more than a day of text insisting that the reporting from the New York Times was inaccurate. Now, Bauer hadn't reported that, but because she had repeated it online, Halligan was going back and forth with her on the merits of that reporting. Then, after a few hours, Halligan wrote, "By the way, everything I ever sent you is off record. You're not a journalist, so it's weird saying that, but just letting you know." Bauer responded, quote, "I'm sorry, but that's not how this works. You don't get to say that in retrospect."
No one that we spoke to could point to a similar example or having heard of something like this or having experienced something like this. I will add too that in the time since we've published the story, I've gotten feedback from other legal journalists, other former officials who we didn't speak to in advance of publishing the story, who also had the reaction of, wow. And I asked them, have you ever seen anything like this? And they're like, no, this is wild, So that's kind of the gist of, obviously, it varies people's reactions, but the gist of it is that people have not seen something like this.
Is Lindsey Halligan impaired here? Has she had a couple? Was she at the bar when she wrote this? Seriously. Without even fact checking anything, 4 exclamation marks. Okay, what's the fact? First of all, what are you going to tell her from the grand jury? You're lucky Ann Bauer didn't press you harder, Lindsey, because you would have violated the oath of secrecy around the grand jury proceedings. And they are disclosing grand jury info, which is also not a full representation of what happened. See, Lindsey Halligan doesn't even realize that grand jury material, if it was being disclosed, is illegal. I guess I expect them to do that, but I was surprised by you running with it. I guess she's a fan from their meeting at the Breakers Hotel. All right. And Ann Bauer stays on the horse, stays on the Bronco. I think I made it clear. Ann Bauer says, "I'm happy to retract or correct anything that is untrue." Here's your chance, Lindsey. What's untrue? But I can't do that if you don't know what the supposed error is. What can you be more specific? This is now her 4th attempt to find out, why are you contacting me? You're just criticizing posts that I'm making? So Halligan writes, "You're biased, Anna." Now it's more formal. Again, still on the record. "You're biased. Your reporting isn't accurate."
Details about the Justice Department's indictment of New York Attorney General Letitia James. Sources now telling CNN that Attorney General Pam Bondi was caught off guard by the charges after President Trump's handpicked prosecutor, Lindsey Halligan, did not coordinate with senior DOJ leadership before presenting the case to the grand jury.
So James was indicted yesterday, of course, for alleged bank fraud and making false statements to a financial institution. This coming just weeks after President Trump very publicly called on Bondi to pursue charges against his perceived political rivals. Now, sources say that statement, which of course was posted on social media, was actually intended as a private message, but it was, of course, public.
George, there's a bunch of sort of weedsy details about how you can be a U.S. attorney or not. Now, the sort of general principle people know is that this is a Senate-confirmed position, importantly so. You get appointed by the president, you get confirmed by the Senate. In some emergency situations or interim situations, people can get named as actings. But there's pretty settled law tradition about who gets to do that. And it's really not clear that Halligan even can fill the role that she currently is in now.
Yeah, she has no more authority than you or I or my two corgis to present an indictment to a grand jury in the Eastern District of Virginia.
U.S. Attorney Lindsey Halligan was the only one to sign this indictment. Again, what do we know about how this came together?
Yeah, that's right, Anna. That's our reporting. She was alone in the grand jury room, and she presented yesterday for the first time this case to a new grand jury. That is also our understanding from sources. And it just speaks to the unusual nature of how this case has been presented, very similar to the way the case against former FBI Director James Comey was presented. Apparently no line attorney in the Eastern District of Virginia, no career prosecutor willing to go forward with this case after the former U.S. attorney had rejected this case and said there wasn't enough evidence to bring it, and then was subsequently forced out of office. So you have Donald Trump's handpicked U.S. attorney, Lindsey Halligan, bringing this case to the grand jury after Mr. Trump ordered, essentially, the Attorney General of the United States to move forward with this prosecution. Now, what's interesting here is this is a different case than the one we thought would come against Tish James, because it's not mentioned in the criminal referral by the head of the Housing Finance Corporation, Bill Pulte. This is a different property purchased in Norfolk. Essentially, the crime here, as alleged in the indictment, is that she purchased a home that she said was going to be essentially a second home, a vacation home, but instead used it as a rental property. And the benefit that she got from that was 0.8 of a point on an interest rate. So instead of a 3.8% interest rate, the indictment alleges she got a 3% interest rate.
It really goes without saying that somebody like Lindsey Halligan is unqualified for the job, because absolutely everybody in Trump's administration and everybody surrounding him is unqualified to do what they do. I mean, even if Donald Trump had more wherewithal and a better head on his shoulders, at this point, nobody who's worth a damn wants to be associated with Donald Trump's name and brand. That was one of his biggest issues going into his second term. We knew that he wasn't going to have as many guardrails against him as he did in his first go-round. You know, he had people in his administration who would tell him no, who would get in the way of him doing whatever he wanted. But this go-round, he doesn't have that. All he has is sycophants, and all he has is complete nutcases like Pete Hegseth. You got Dr. Oz, you got Linda McMahon, you got billionaires, you got the most corrupt administration, the wealthiest administration in the history of this country, and the most corrupt administration we've ever seen, bar none. This man is literally just making billions of dollars, him and his family, off of being in that office. But that's not exactly what this video is about. It's about Donald Trump's incompetence. It's about everybody around him being a complete buffoon who can't find their elbow, who can't, I don't know what that saying is, they ass from their elbow, however the hell you say it. That's what Donald Trump is, while he destroys the economy, while he ruins all of our foreign relationships, and while his popularity tanks. But you know what? Of course this was going to happen. This was always going to happen. And unfortunately, we have 3 more years of this.